I had spent months cultivating my flower beds, carefully selecting colors and arranging blooms to brighten the neighborhood. Every morning, I watered and tended them, delighting in the fragrance and beauty that spilled across my front yard. Then one afternoon, a notice appeared on my door. The HOA demanded that I remove my flowers immediately. They violate community aesthetic rules, it read. My heart sank. How could something so harmless, so lovely, incite such hostility? Before I continue, make sure to subscribe. You won't want to miss how a simple act of gardening turned into a courtroom showdown that taught the HOA a lesson they'll never forget. My family and I had always respected the community. We paid dues on time, helped with events, and maintained our property meticulously. The flowers were my personal touch, a reflection of care and pride, not defiance. But Karen and her HOA enforcers saw only rule-breaking. Their notices grew more insistent, threatening fines, penalties, and even legal action. I tried to reason with them. These flowers are on my property and pose no harm to anyone, I said during a tense phone call. Please reconsider before escalating. The response was cold and rigid. Rules are rules, the HOA representative said. You must remove them immediately, or face consequences. Frustration and disbelief mingled. I took photos of the flowers, my correspondence with the HOA, and any past notices that seemed arbitrary. I knew their overreach couldn't stand up under scrutiny. My plan formed slowly. This wasn't about anger or revenge, it was about justice. Over the next few days, the HOA sent multiple notices, each more threatening than the last. I responded calmly, citing property rights, aesthetic discretion, and the lack of any legal basis for their demands. I am happy to discuss compromises, but removal is unnecessary and unreasonable, I wrote in one email, careful to remain professional. Karen visited personally one morning, clipboard in hand. These flowers disrupt the uniformity of the community, she said, her voice sharp. You must comply. I smiled politely. Karen, I respect your role, but the law protects my right to maintain my property. If the HOA wishes to dispute this legally, I will comply with the proper process. Her scowl deepened. You think you can defy the HOA? I'm not defying anything, I said calmly. I'm asking that we follow the law and fair procedures. That evening, I contacted a family friend who was a judge, explaining the situation. I just want to protect my flowers, I said. And make sure the HOA can't act arbitrarily against anyone else. My friend listened patiently, reviewing the evidence I had collected. You've documented everything well, they said. If this goes to court, I think the HOA will have a very hard time defending themselves. The turning point was clear, the HOA had relied on intimidation and assumed compliance. They had no legal standing, and my patient, well-documented approach had shifted the balance of power. I would let the system reveal the truth. The next day, I filed a formal complaint, presenting all my documentation and requesting a hearing. Karen and the HOA seemed confident, but I knew that their overreach had left them vulnerable. My flowers, tended with care and love, had become symbols of justice, patience, and integrity. As the hearing date approached, the tension was palpable. Neighbors whispered encouragement, curious to see if the HOA would maintain their rigid stance. The first mini cliffhanger came when Karen muttered to a board member, She actually has a chance of winning? I smiled quietly, knowing the law, and fairness, was firmly on my side. The courtroom was quiet, almost tense, as I walked in with my carefully organized folders and photos of my flowers. Karen and the HOA representatives were already seated, looking confident, or at least trying to appear that way. I knew their confidence was misplaced. My evidence was clear, and my case was solid. Good morning, Your Honor, I said, addressing the judge. I am here to ensure that my property rights are respected, and that the HOA cannot enforce rules without legal authority. The judge, a family friend who had reviewed my documentation, nodded. I've seen the evidence, they said, their tone calm but authoritative. Let's hear from the HOA. Karen rose first, her voice sharp. Your Honor, the HOA has rules regarding community aesthetics. The flowers on the property in question do not conform to our established standards. We believe action is necessary to maintain consistency in the neighborhood. I remained composed. Your Honor, these flowers are on my private property, maintained with care, and they cause no harm. There is no clause in the HOA agreement or local law that mandates their removal. The HOA's enforcement in this case is arbitrary and lacks legal standing. The judge glanced at the HOA representatives, then at me. Do you have documentation to support your claim? I handed over the folders, photographs, and copies of correspondence. The judge flipped through them, nodding in acknowledgement. It is clear that the HOA did not provide sufficient legal grounds for their demands. Arbitrary enforcement is not permissible. Karen's face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came. The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, clearly realizing that the situation had slipped beyond their control. I find in favor of the homeowner, the judge declared. The HOA is to cease any further demands regarding these flowers and is ordered to cover the costs incurred by the homeowner in this matter. A murmur ran through the small courtroom. I felt a mix of relief and quiet triumph. Justice had prevailed, not through anger or aggression, but through preparation, patience, and respect for the legal process. Karen tried to protest, but Your Honor, I've made my ruling, the judge said firmly. No further comments will be entertained on this matter. Walking out of the courtroom, neighbors were waiting outside, eager to congratulate me. You showed them, one said. I can't believe they actually had to pay you. It wasn't about payment, I replied, smiling. It was about principle, fairness, and making sure the rules are applied justly. Back home, I looked at my vibrant flowers. Now more than just plants, they were symbols of patience, perseverance, and dignity. My spouse joined me in the yard, eyes bright. You handled that perfectly, they said. I was worried it might get ugly. It wasn't about revenge, I explained. It was about showing that knowledge, documentation, and calm action win where threats and intimidation fail. Over the next few weeks, the HOA's approach changed significantly. Notices became more carefully worded, with clear references to actual rules and legal guidance. Karen, in particular, seemed noticeably subdued. Residents who had once felt intimidated now felt empowered to speak up when needed, knowing that fairness and proper procedure were more powerful than fear. The flowers thrived as ever, and every morning I tended them with renewed appreciation. The incident became a quiet story among neighbors, a tale of patience, preparation, and the importance of standing firm with dignity. One neighbor chuckled as they passed by. I never thought flowers could teach an HOA a lesson. I smiled, knowing that sometimes the simplest things carry the deepest lessons. Reflecting on the whole experience, I realized the true victory wasn't monetary. It was the affirmation that fairness, law, and respect for individual rights must always come first. Karen had overstepped, and the HOA had learned that intimidation cannot replace justice. My flowers were safe, my family felt vindicated, and the community had witnessed the importance of integrity and thoughtful action. As the sun set over my flourishing garden, I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm triumph. Knowledge, patience, and dignity had won. And the lesson was clear for anyone in the neighborhood: arbitrary power is no match for careful preparation, the law, and a steadfast commitment to what is right.